So today we're finally going to do it. I am going to rank every single Umineko character to my best ability. I played Umineko about a year ago, but my knowledge is still fresh, and I'm feeling ready to go. You guys have probably been looking at my back with all my Umineko posters, wondering why I haven't been posting any Umineko content, and I want that to change from now on. And we're going to start with the tier list. I believe these are in relatively random order. I just took a random tier list online. I guess I'll shuffle them up a little bit. Alright, I've shuffled them up a bit, so let's just start. Before we do, please note I openly discuss and show clips from Umineko episodes 1 through 8, so this is your last chance to avoid spoilers if you haven't read Umineko. You have been warned. And the very first character we're starting with is Bernkastel. Interesting. I have to say I really like the whole arc she goes through, because at first you sort of believe she's on your side. She brings Ange into the mix. Things are looking okay with her. And then all of a sudden, once Beatrice's out of the mix, she just goes haywire. She brings in Erika. She is absolutely not a good guy, but she's a lot of fun, I have to say. I don't really see how I could put her anywhere but love. Kraus, on the other hand, I like Kraus. He doesn't really do anything good or bad for the story. Like, he's always made out to be the villain by the family, especially Kinzo's younger kids, but he never really turns out that bad. Obviously, him hiding Kinzo's death was not ideal. And note, while this was Natsuhi's idea, it was Kraus who used the Ushiromiya fortune as collateral for his business gambles, which, while still morally bankrupt, was brought about more due to his naivety than his maliciousness. He also has some pretty decent moments, especially the boxer moment in episode 4, which I thought was hilarious. I like Kraus overall. I'd put him in like. From what I remember, Cornelia is like the younger, more naive version of Gertrude, pretty much. I don't like her, but I don't hate her. I think that's neutral for sure. Ushiromiya Eva is a mouthful. You're very much primed to hate her for most of Umineko until the very end, in which case she kind of comes back narratively. As a character, I think she's really interesting and she's really well written, and for that I would put her like top tier of a written characters list. But personally, I can't get over the first like 6 episodes where she was just a freaking bitch, man. I'm gonna put her in dislike. Probably my first hot take. I don't even know this guy's name. This is the guy that Ange would talk to about the stories of Rokenjima. That's just a neutral, I don't care. Featherine Augustus Aurora. As far as witches go, you can't really hate her that much, but you can't really love her that much either. I would say I like her overall. This is the one that people say is Yukishi's self-insert or something, right? It's been a while, I can't remember. I think she's a bit of a troll, but overall, I like her. I would put her over Kraus, for sure. My boy Genji. Genji is like completely stern through the entire freaking visual novel. It's fantastic. That being said, he's like slightly above neutral for me, because I don't like him that much, you know? Like, I don't love him. I like his demon counterpart that I'm sure we'll get to much later, a lot more. But as for Genji himself, I like him, but like not to an extreme amount. He's cool. He's a great butler. Not extremely likable, but not hateable, which would usually put him in neutral, but I think he's slightly above neutral. The big B, Battler. I feel like you can't really put Battler below B, or in this tier list case, like, because if you do, then I doubt you've probably gotten to the end of Umineko. I guess that already gives you an insight of what I'm thinking here. He's at least a like. I'm not sure if I would put him in love. He's a really good protagonist, I think. That much I'll 100% agree with. But that doesn't make me necessarily like him as a character. This is a hard one. It's either the top of like or the bottom of love. I think maybe I'll switch it later. I think I'll put him in the bottom of love, and here's why. Battler's a really fun character, but he's definitely naive at points. And he doesn't really think things through. He gets way too caught up in the chessboard thinking, in my opinion. Like, it's obviously a good way to think, like, how would your opponent, react to a situation? But, I mean, it was honestly annoying to me every time after, like, the first 3 times he said it, that he said, let's turn the chessboard around. Like, I get it, bro. But he's fun. I definitely like his character as the story goes on more. So, for now, I'm gonna leave him in love. If I change it later, maybe I'll elaborate on it a bit more. All I said for the goats was, I don't really care, and whilst you could argue they are an important personification of the readers and their theories, I don't feel like it's a worthy discussion for a tier list. Neutral. Oh, which sister was this? I'm not going to remember the names of all these girls. I know the names, but I don't know who's who. So let me cheat and figure that out real quick. I made sure to put up the Umineko wiki beside me because I knew this was going to happen. Because there's so many characters, there's no way I'm going to remember all of them. I couldn't even remember their names whilst I was reading the visual novel. So this one's Asmodeus, the last one. For the most part, I think the stakes they have their moments sometimes, but they're all going to be around the same place for me. So I guess maybe I'll put them in the same place, except for Mammon, but we'll get to that. Besides rating them on their design, which I would actually put Asmodeus first for. So it's perfect she's actually the first one that appears, because I can put all the sisters behind her. Am I neutral on them? I don't hate them. I would say I like them, but I wouldn't say I like them as much as most of the characters I'm probably going to be putting in the like column. And I don't want to make a sort of like column because that's stupid. I'll put her in like. That's that. This guy's just Dr. Nanjo's son. Don't really care. I put him above the other random characters that Ange is going to come to investigate. Ah yes. Fudu Fudu? I don't know, I found these characters kind of annoying. I wouldn't say I hate them, but I dislike them. Now that I'm really thinking about it, the whole Kraus side of the family is like the least offensive part of the Ushiromiya family. I'm pretty neutral on Jessica. Actually, I have an idea. We had to zoom out a bit, but I decided to add another column, no opinion column, because I feel neutral is where I've been throwing the ones where I don't really have an opinion of, and I feel like that's not fair. Jessica feels like a neutral character to me, definitely above Cornelia, and just so it doesn't muck up the tier list, and also so I can throw things in neutral more fairly, because I wouldn't put Jessica in the same league as any of these other characters, but I really don't like Jessica one way or the other. She has her moments. But she's also kind of annoying at times. I felt like most of the time she was always just there, like honestly. And when she wasn't there, she was usually an issue. But I don't hate her for that, but I would absolutely just leave her in neutral. And I think that's fair. Now Kasumi, she is definitely hateable material. She's written to be a giant bitch, but I mean at the end of the day, that's all she is. I really don't see how anyone could actually not put her in hate, because she's meant to be hated. And it's true, I hate her. At the end of episode 4, when Ange pulled that magic out of her ass and fucked her shit up, that was glorious, okay?
Ushiromiya Ange!
But yeah, hate her. Be gone. And just so we're clear, now that we have a separate column for no opinion and neutral, I'm gonna move Asmodeus down to neutral, because I feel that makes more sense, or how I feel about her. And the rest of the stakes, which is what we have next. I believe this one's Basilbub. And again, I don't really have any strong feelings about her. I like her less than Asmodeus. I probably like them both less than Jessica actually, but not less than Cornelia. Kanon as the character presented in the story would probably go into like for me. My main thoughts are the character portrayal of Kanon. He's actually a pretty cool guy. He might be cold and unsociable, but when it counts, he is not afraid to step up. And also he cares a lot for his sister. So overall he seems like a good guy. I have no reason to hate him as a servant, and I hope things work out for him. You know, I really do not like Hideyoshi. I feel like he's constantly trying to manipulate people. He's just an asshole when he seemingly tries to be nice. That's probably just the whole business guy side of him, but still, it pissed me off many times. I wouldn't say I hate him, but I definitely do not like him. I guess he gets to be with his wife in the dislike tier. Hurrah. Alright, Butt Pincher McGee is next. For Leon's short time in the story, considering he appears in episode 7, and even though he's a major part of it, overall, I think I like him. I'm not putting him next to Kanon for any specific reason. I just want to emphasize that. But I would put him, at this point, above Kanon. I'd put him above Kraus too. Actually, I'd put Kanon above Kraus too. For no specific reason, of course. I think his dynamic with Will is kind of entertaining.
何を暴れてるんです？もっと力を抜いてください。本当はお餅みたいに柔らかいお尻をしているくせに。
And overall, it was interesting to see, I suppose, what could have been. I have nothing to hate about Leon. I wouldn't say I love him, but he's definitely up there. Just don't let him get behind you. Fucking Rudolph. Rudolph is a character that is definitely sketchy from the beginning, not only from his looks, but from his behavior. You see in the first episode of Umineko, and it only escalates from there to the point where he clearly becomes the bad guy, and almost certainly, in fact, besides Kinzo, he's the worst guy in the Ushiromiya family, morally. He has his cool moments, though. I would say I like him. Bad guy, but he's a cool guy. And in the end, isn't that all that matters? Fisherman here, he goes into no opinion. And next up we have Leviathan. Another stake of purgatory, whom I would put the last for my favorite of the 3, but not really for any specific reason, just because of the design, honestly. Because again, for the most part, they're all the same to me. I realize some of them have parts in episode 7 in Claire's retelling of the story, but those parts aren't substantial, and they don't really weigh into my opinion of them one way or the other. This Beto, I'm just going to call them Betos, it's easier, is Castiglione. Castiglione. It's the Italian one, okay? I mean, truly and honestly, she did nothing wrong. The whole situation that happened at the base was unfortunate. She's easily the most morally sound character at the entire base when the shit goes down during World War II Rokenjima. Really, besides that, her greatest sin was loving Kinzo, and how could she know he'd become fucking crazy? I'd put her at the bottom because I like her character, but not extraordinarily. She's just seemingly a good girl who got caught in some fucked up shit.
ならばせめて迎えの船が来るまでの数日間をあなたと一緒にいたいの。
The peak column remains empty, and I'm warning you now, there are 3 characters that I'm going to be putting in that column. Kyrie is one of them. I don't think this is an unpopular opinion. I don't usually think people put her at the very top of the tier list, and who says she's going to be the very top? But in general, I really like calculating characters. Her character from the very get-go was interesting, and I knew something was up with it. It's actually really unfortunate that she dies very often first in the earlier episodes, though it's probably for good reason, because she's really smart and calculating. And before people mention it, I just want to say that I know that the chessboard thinking comes from Kyrie, but unlike Battler, she doesn't repeat the phrase, turn the chessboard around, very often. She also dies often and isn't in a meta battle with a witch, but I digress. And even up to the point where we see the Rokenjima massacres, I just think she's freaking awesome. Alright?
てめえに男を取られて18年間嫉妬し続ける女の狂気がわかるかよ。
She's easily the smartest and most able Ushiromiya for one that doesn't even have the blood, even though we see a sort of super cold side to her where it suggests she doesn't care about her kids and only cares about money. In the end, we find out that that's not necessarily true. I really like her character. I thought she was always interesting when she was on the screen, and it was one of the characters I was hoping we'd see more of. Honestly, for me, Kumasawa was kind of annoying. That stupid mackerel thing got annoying fast.
実はお魚のサバの絞り汁ですよ。
She'd always be freaking out. Honestly, I was glad whenever I saw her die. I don't hate her, but goddamn, she was just annoying. Screw you, Kumasawa. Go sleep with the mackerels. This one's Belphegor, the steak of sloth.
抵抗もそして闘争も無駄だ。お前は何も考えなくていい。ただ目を閉じているだけでいい。私がすべて優しく終わらせてやる。
I like her design more than the other two. I've just gotta say now that I'm a sucker for Twin Tails, so any design that has something like that is gonna be at the top for me, which is why she's gonna be sitting at the top. Saturn can go here.
さあ、今度は簡単に壊すんじゃないわよ。
Most commonly referred to as Amakusa during the visual novel, was Ange's bodyguard of sorts, driving her around all the crazy places she wanted to go.
六軒島ですかい。すべての始まりで、すべての旅の終着駅ってわけだ。
Kinda gotta give it up to him for putting up with Ange's crazy whims. I don't really like him, but I think I'd put him at the top of neutral, just because he's cool, but he doesn't do much for the story besides drive Ange around, and also kind of get screwed depending on the one singular choice you make at the very end of Umineko. George. Fuck George. I fucking hate George, honestly. Screw the entire Ava side of the family. I mean, besides the fact when we figure out George is pretty much a fucking incel, for the entire time when he was simping on Shannon, I just thought it was annoying. And to elaborate on this, whilst George's love for Shannon may be real, it's one of the many things that subtly show George's true personality. Because whether it matters to her or not, Shannon is not in a position to refuse. Furthermore, George, despite playing the nice guy, also accepts the status quo, ensuring Battler and Jessica do not get involved with events such as Rose's beating of Maria or the conflicts in the inheritance discussion. And then the few times when shit hit the fan and he brought out his, like, whatever it was, karate, judo, whatever, I was like, okay, there's no way. I know this is what we're seeing, but I bet this guy's just laying dead in the grass behind the bushes.
僕は初めから数フロア下の君にかかとを食らわせるつもりで飛んでいる。
George is just an annoying character. I didn't really like him, and I'm not going to start liking him. Honestly, Shannon deserved better. And speaking of which, I can't even remember any moments where he's like actually crucial for this story. Like, he's relatively well kept and calm, especially when the murders start, but even then, yeah, I don't really like George at all. I would say I hate him. Nanjo has to be at the very bottom of neutral, because I wouldn't say I dislike him. He's so useless, honestly so suspicious for me for the entire story. He just never really provided any useful input. You go up to a body that had its head like grinded off and he's like, yeah, I think it's dead.
おそらく即死だったでしょう。
I mean, okay. And besides that, he's just running around, and when he's not running around, he's getting killed. His input's never useful, as I mentioned. I don't dislike him, but he's useless. And even although we know why that was, overall, it still doesn't mean that I have to like his character that did nothing for episodes length of time. Alright, Dlanor. 1 second here. You guys actually haven't seen this one because it's at the top of my Wii pyramid here, but this is definitely my favorite displate that I have, the Dlanor one, Knox's Decacog. It says all around stuff like Equalizer is the death. This one's just cool. Really, I should be putting it at the bottom so you can see it, but I think it looks really cool at the top, and you can't see it, but I can, and that's all that matters. Dlanor's a lot of fun. She first appears as one of Erika's logical devices as the form of Knox's Decalogue. She sets her emotions aside and works for Erika to combat Battler as best as she can. She's extremely serious about her work as an Inquisitor, but at the same time, she doesn't exactly like it when she's off the clock, as we've seen when she approaches Battler in the Golden Realm.
しかし、私の心は本来中立です。いや、忘れてください。
At any rate, she's a lot of fun when she's on the roll. You gotta fucking love it. I like Dlanor. She's cool. I would certainly put her in love. Yeah, I'd put her above Battler. She's cool. She's fun. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm probably going to put a lot of the bad characters at the top of my list. That's not for any specific reason, as far as I know. Anyway, moving on. Lam Delta. Another one you can actually see right behind me here. So obviously, you probably can expect that I like her. And I do. She is absolutely a frickin' troll. Her relationship with Bernkastel is interesting, and despite being a witch who enjoys the suffering of the players of the game,
もう惨劇もクライマックスだわ。生き残るのはどっちかしら。
she typically is, well, I wouldn't say relatively neutral, but at times she either jumps one way or the other, or she's playing as the game's moderator, so she's not unfair in any sense of the word, and even at the end, she becomes, I guess, what you could say as good. I'd like to mention right now, before I place her, that I think I'm going to cement Battler around middle bottom of the love tier now that I've had time to think about it. And so with that thought, I'm going to put Lam Delta below Battler, still in the love tier, definitely one of my favorites. Mammon is the most prevalent out of all of the stakes because she accompanies Ange the most when she's on her journey in the 4th episode of Umineko.
この強欲のマモン、その日まで必ずエンジェ様にお仕えします。
Which already puts her above most of the sisters because she has more screen time and time to develop her character than all of the other sisters. So with that in mind, I think I'd put her at the bottom of like over all of the other stakes of Purgatory. Still pretty close to neutral. Again, like I don't have a strong opinion about her, but I definitely like her more than the other stakes whom had a very small part in the story. Ava Beto is kind of batshit insane when she first appears and for the entirety of episode 3.
第9の晩に魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。
Being a representation of the Ava culprit theory, her web logic puzzle was very interesting at the end of episode 3, and looking back on it after reading further into Umineko, it's kind of interesting to see what she says and what you now know how it is possible to get out of that web. And she appears a couple more times throughout the story, and she's always freaking insane, honestly. I think I put her at the top of like, she's like normal Ava, but with all the bad parts becoming insane and fun because now she's a witch, which sounds great to me. Claire. I believe this one's a no opinion. She might be neutral. As far as I remember, she just does the retelling of Yasuda's tale. I guess she's also the physical representation of her. Will freaking eviscerates her. I really never thought about it one way or another. Ange Ushiromiya. She's pretty badass, okay? She pretty much is like Battler, but better, okay? She has a very long and interesting story arc in episode 4, and she continues to evolve as a character, eventually becoming a witch. Things get insane, and then you get the entirety of episode 8, which a lot of people hate. The whole riddle sequence I actually loved a lot. I also loved solving stupid riddles, but I liked the theme of having Ange trying to get over the entire tragedy. I just want to say it here, I'm absolutely going to say it again, and I have no concrete proof for this, but when I read episode 1, Ange is mentioned before they get on the freaking boat, and at that point I thought, there's no fucking way Ryukishi just mentions a character and doesn't mention them again, I knew from that moment she'd be the most important character in the story. I was fucking right. My vindication does not affect my rank for her, but my rank for her is still the top of peak. Okay? She's my favorite character, and since you can argue she's the main character of the story, it might feel like, I don't know, maybe a sham to put her at the top, but I disagree. Her serious witch hunting, mystery solving attitude never really fades.
好きになさいよ、好きに。私はこんなことではくじけない。1986年10月5日の真実をいつか必ず暴いてやるんだから。
I just found the points in Umineko that focus on her some of my most favorite, so for me, she's peak. Kinzo. I really liked Kinzo's character in the first 4 episodes. I was fairly certain he was dead pretty early on, before the events of the story even occurred. His craziness is kind of, you can kind of get wrapped into it.
私は死に損残念であり、そして情けなくざまあないと思っている。
It's kind of fun watching him laugh like a maniac and go from that to freaking crying. Kinzo, as is shown in the first 4 episodes, is a badass. And even in episode 7, he's a badass. Unfortunately, he's also a very morally inept character. Does that factor into my ranking? It does a little bit. I would say that I like him, and I would put him about here. He has a lot of good moments. But you can definitely hate or dislike Kinzo for what he's done, and I completely agree with that. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to dislike him as a character or as a proponent of the story. Gertrude, I like more than Cornelia. But that's pretty much as far as my thoughts on her go. You'll probably notice that for a lot of these, I'm going to be matching the related characters together, like the stakes, the 2, maybe sub-inquisitors, I don't know their rank, etc., etc. Just because they kind of fill the same spot in Umineko's story in my head. My opinion of them doesn't really change. I do not like Gota. He's either trying to like completely brag or show off to earn points with the family, or he's just a giant freaking pussy. And that's the whole matter of it. To the point where he even fucks up in episode 8. He's just a dumbass, okay? I hate his character, hate everything about him, and though I'm using the word hate, I don't hate him as much as Kasumi and George, but he still sucks, okay? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I should be putting the ones I hate the most at the back. You know what? Fuck it, I will put him in hate. He can be at the top of hate. Screw Gota. Kumasawa's son, whom I don't care for. I can go to the very end, don't care. Natsuhi. I feel like Natsuhi very early on is kind of seen as an irrational character, but as you learn more about her goals and ambitions, she actually becomes a bit of an endearing character, especially for her relationship with Kraus. But at the same time, she's not free of guilt. It was pretty fucking funny to me that in episode 5, Erika goes super hard on her with her theory of her cheating on Kraus with Kinzo. That's hilarious. In the end, untrue, but hilarious. I think I'll put her below Rudolph. Yeah, I want to say I like her overall. Let's go with that. The next one is Okonagi, whom you may remember from Higurashi. I feel like it's hard for a lot of people to separate their thoughts on this guy from how he acted in Higurashi. In Umineko, he doesn't really do anything outwardly bad, though he does have a suspicious phone call with Amakusa at one point when they start to realize Ange is a liability, so he can still be a bit of a manipulative bastard. I don't think he's worth disliking.
愛があるかどうかさ。相手に愛を感じてるかどうかで、物の見え方は全く違うってことなんだ。
I believe he belongs in neutral. I don't care about him at all. I don't think he's worth hating, at least in Umineko. Okay, Belphegor. With the rest of the Stakes of Purgatory, I think I'd put her right in the middle.
虚勢など張らずに素直になればもっと楽になれるのに。
Maria. Oh, Lord. Maria. These next 5 characters are a doozy. Maria is very easy to hate or dislike early on, and I mean for good reason. Eventually, it's very easy to sympathize with her. Genuinely, if I had to choose one way or another, I would say I dislike her. I put her at the top of dislike. I feel like that's fair. I don't really hate her that much. But if you ask me if I liked the character Maria, I would probably have to say no. Beito, the one and only. Literally Umineko herself. So how do I rank her? Lots of people put her at the top of their tier lists. I've seen some people, arguably heretics, put her at the bottom of their tier lists. I think for me, the character of Beito has so many different aspects to it that it's really hard to just put them all into one little box and rank it. I think I'd put her at the top of like for me. That might not make people happy, that she's not at least in love.
ついでによ。そなたは無能だ。
I do really like her character. She obviously is the driving force of Umineko, and she is one of the most fun characters in Umineko by far. She's enjoyable, but there's so much to her, which does make her a great character, but it makes it really hard for me to really put her higher into the like tiers, because there's so much to consider. I couldn't see myself putting her higher than low love, but I think for now, she's definitely cemented at the top of like, and I personally think that's fair. I like how we're slowly zooming out as the vast majority of characters start to get filled out in this tier list. Okay, Renove. I like Renove. As I mentioned earlier, he's cool, he's loyal, he has a sense of humor. His voice actor is one of my favorite, which puts an inherent bias in me. As for ranking, I don't think I can put him in love. I think near the top of like, right by Beito's side is where he belongs, but that's also, for me, about where I'd rank him. I'd have to maybe think a little bit harder between these characters, but I think for now, I like this setup. Rosa. Rosa sucks. Is there really anything more to say about her? The more you learn, the more you hate her. It's hard because I think, again, she's well written. In the sense that she's absolutely a character you have to hate. But again, who cares? I hate her. I think she deserves maybe even last in hate. Maybe is she my most hated Umineko character? Yeah. I mean, the fact that I put Maria in dislike, you'd think that, oh yeah, I'm one of those people who cheered whenever she'd slap Maria, but that's not necessarily the case. I dislike Maria for other reasons. But Rosa is inherently just also maybe part of the reason why I hate Maria, because of her terrible mothering, and God forbid she's a terrible person all around. The least useful Ushiromiya, I mean, she just sucks. Guddo, as many would say at this point. As I mentioned, and you're probably expecting this, I said I have 3 peak characters. I think you can imagine where this is going, so let's just get it out of the way. Erika's really interesting because she has nothing to do with the story at hand, but she is actually a character in the real world. Her obsession with mystery stories and solving them, obviously it stems from some sort of personal issue, but beyond that, because of that very personal issue, Bernkastel brings her in here as the detective, and it's just a lot of fun. In trying to be very neutral, she's inherently extremely antagonistic. She's like, don't touch dead bodies or whatever, because she wants to examine the body. And obviously that pisses off everyone else in the family and all the other characters. Notably in episode 5, Erika finds the mystery so easy that she begins to look down on it and get bored. Her entire conduct enrages Battler, who cannot believe Erika can only see this as a game. However, for this very reason, Erika's detached and unemotional state of mind is perfect for a detective role, and in that sense, she is pretty much the opposite of Battler. Her neutralness is, in fact, one of her biggest antagonistic points. I mean, obviously her other is obnoxiousness. She also has some really interesting interactions with characters. I made a video about this about a year and some ago, about Maria versus Erika, and how that is pretty much symbolic of the entirety of Umineko, even though it's just two kids pretty much fighting over a problem that has a very clear answer. And in that sense, I'm also glad her character is childlike in many of her mannerisms as well. You also have to feel really sorry for her at some points, because even if she is a giant bitch to some of the characters, she also just gets completely screwed by the witch she's helping, Bernkastel, to a somewhat depressing degree, especially when you consider her IRL circumstances. You can't really blame her for her role in the story, and her role in the story is extremely fun. It's antagonistic, it makes you mad, but it also might make you laugh. She definitely has her bad tendencies, but I really think that she is a great character for Umineko. I never really liked Gap. When she first appeared in episode 4, thought it was annoying and stupid. Her role kind of becomes interesting in episode 7 when you figure out she's the original Beto. The name Gap is something you really shouldn't call a female character. And that's all I have to say. I'm putting her in the middle of dislike. The rabbits. So let's just consider these 4 in a group as I'm about to rate them. This one, I'm having no opinion on. Depending on your knowledge of Umineko, you might not even know who this is. This is the rabbit that Rosa breaks in episode 4 when she gets mad at Maria. One of the points she gets mad at Maria. She's extremely afraid of Rosa too in the extra stories of Umineko. I haven't read any of them, so that's why I'm putting her in no opinion. I don't know her character, haven't heard or read anything about her besides that. Right, beyond that, we got the leader, the devious, snarky one, and the timid, serious one. Alright, if I had to do this rapid fire, I'd put leader here, I'd put serious, timid rabbit girl here, 45, I don't remember the leader's number, and I'd put 410, who makes light of people and laughs at 45 in particular, here. And this is just based off their personalities and character designs for the most part. No further comment. Saktaro, I think his name is. The stuffy that Maria likes to carry around, who is now a little furry Shota boy. I want to justify it, but I really don't know what to say. I just don't really like him. Virgilia, the other original Beto. The original witch Beto. I feel like she's best in her first appearance, where she decides to work with Battler to defeat Beto until the switcheroo. And when that happens, I thought her character was a lot more interesting. But then eventually her character, besides being a character who comforts other characters, she mostly just spouts a lot of information and ideas. She's not a very memorable character for me, to be honest. That doesn't mean I don't like her. I would definitely put her in the like tier. Let's get that out of the way right now. And I'd put her like higher up. I think I put her about there. Will, or how I like to refer to him, Will You Punish Me, Daddy? I like Will. His entire arc in the 7th chapter is interesting. His partnership with Leon turns out to be much more interesting than I initially thought it was going to be. Will's the cool type. He gets shit done. In the end, he gets to put to rest Claire. He fucking heroically saves Leon and then his part's over. For the brief moment where his character is important in Umineko, he's a great protagonist or detective or whatever you want to call him, a great character, and for that reason, I am going to put him in love. Put him beside Battler. So this is the other twin, but just based on her design, I'd put her above Gap.
でももし僕らに祝福されなければ君たちの恋路は消えてなくなり枯れてしおれて消えてしまう
So now the twins are not together, probably for the best. Shannon is our very last character, and a very interesting character, of course, honestly.
それで永遠の誓いは完了した。あなたがどんな邪悪な魔法や悪意で私たちを災難だとしても永遠は汚せない。
Early on, I mean, obviously she's nice and gentle. I like that personality of her. Honestly, I really don't know what to say about Shannon. You really gotta feel bad for her. In the earlier episodes, of course, as I mentioned, she's sweet and nice to the family, a clumsy maid, but still she does her best. As the picture becomes clearer, and especially in episode 7, that's where the bad feelings start to come in. Fuck, I don't know. This is a really hard one for me. Now that we have it all laid out, here, I think I'm thinking way too hard about this. This is just a tier list video. Of course, I'm not going to be able to go into every character's, arc and whatnot. So I'm just going to put Shannon there, and that's my tier list. I'm sure you guys have your opinions on these characters and my placements of them. Let me know if you want to see more Umineko content. See you later.